Welcome back to our series From the Field to the Boardroom. I'm here at SoftwareOne. I'm Renee Dowdy, Global Sales Enablement Director for North America here at SoftwareOne.
Hi, and I'm Meredith Black. I'm the head women's lacrosse coach at Marquette University.
So Meredith, I'm excited for us to have a conversation, not only because I'm a huge Marquette fan and would love to learn more, especially about women's lacrosse, where you are the first women's lacrosse coach for the team.
Yes.
Or first female lacrosse coach for the women's team.
Yeah.
I guess I should better clarify.
No, that's okay. And the first to ever be the coach too. So
Wow.
both, yeah.
Okay, amazing. So how does that feel to be the first, and what impact do you see that having on the sport moving forward?
Yeah, well, when Marquette announced that they were going to have the program or start the men's and women's lacrosse program in 2011 is when I was hired. I knew I had to have the job. I really wanted to start a program from scratch. I thought that was a really unique opportunity.
Yeah.
The sport itself is growing tremendously in the country, and so being a part of something new, you can kind of make it your own. You get to put your stamp on it however you like, and that was just a really great opportunity for me. Plus, Milwaukee is a great place to live, but I think it had very little lacrosse coming in.
Yeah.
So not only was it an opportunity to grow the sport within the college community, I could actually grow it within the local community too, which I've been able to do. And that's been so fulfilling and so fun to watch.
I love that. That's really cool, because it
Yeah.
strikes me that lacrosse is far more dominant on the coast than it is
Yes.
in the Midwest.
Really East Coast.
Okay.
It's a Maryland, Long Island
Yeah.
thing that has taken up the whole East Coast. It's come out to the West Coast a little bit. Denver's a big hotspot, and then everywhere in between is very hit or miss.
Yes, uncharted territory.
Yes, exactly.
Lots of opportunity, as I like to
Exactly.
think about it.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice. So obviously, like, teamwork takes a lot of work, and this has to have been really interesting to have both built the team from scratch, and I imagine you inherited some personalities on the team as well.
Well, no, I was able to just select.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
there was
incredible.
no inheriting anything, which was harder, but also unique.
Because I think oftentimes leaders perceive, like, if I could just start from scratch,
Yeah.
right? Like, somehow
Yeah.
that's going to be like the magic scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
But tell me about, with that brand new team that you've built, how did you work with that team and the leaders and coaches to find connections and build trust?
Yeah, I think that, so you obviously would think as a coach, we work on the skill of lacrosse, and it goes without saying, that's what we do. But equally spent time is worked on teamwork, building trust, building connections. It's the same amount of time spent, because you can be as skilled as you want, or you can be the most skilled team in the world. If you're not connected to the people you're playing with and working with and doing all these things with day in and day out, then you're not going to find success. I'm sure it's very similar in the office building.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I was just thinking that as well, where I think sometimes we may prioritize the skills that we think are going to get us to our goals the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
So we're focused on, what is it that's going to help to be able to move that number forward, or to be able to better meet client needs, when also you have to be able to pull back and develop those behavioral or soft skills alongside it. Because you really
Exactly.
can't have one without the other. Have
Yes.
you ever encountered an experience where you're like, I have this powerhouse player who has all the physical talent, but maybe they were missing some of that ability to emotional intelligence or whatever else might have been missing to allow them to be a great team member?
Totally, 100%. We've had that. We've had it on that individual level, like you speak of. We've also had it on, like, in college sports, you tend to have your class weighs heavy. Not that it's a hierarchy, but more that you're going to be spending those 4 years with those same people. So you tend to lead together in a lot of scenarios. So when a class is missing some of that leadership, some of that ability to connect, it really affects the rest of the team, because that's a quarter of the team that's now not necessarily holding their weight or at least helping. And if you're a senior, there is that hierarchy, and that, like, you've been here the longest, so it doesn't necessarily mean a freshman can't lead. It just means that the seniors really need to be the ones to kind of keep that team together and build on the trust and build the connectivity. So yeah, and it's tough, and we will lose games because of that, when we clearly have the skill, but we just don't have the connection. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, speaking of that, you've probably seen your team through a lot of successes and triumphs, but also those setbacks and losses. How do you help your team to bounce back through those setbacks?
Yeah, I think we always say you either win or you learn. So that's
I like that.
Yeah, that's a big post-game loss talk, because you learn from wins for sure, but you're on that high of like, I did it, and you clearly did it well because you won. So you don't look at the intricacies of the things you could have done even better to make it even a better game, even if you win. So when you lose, that's all you look at. You're like, I did this wrong, I could do this better, I could do this better. So instead of harping on the fact that we lost, sure, let's just attack these things that we can learn from, and we can get better. And then maybe the next time we play, we can win. We can do that 10% better, and then we can win the game. Yeah. So because of that, as a result. So that's our biggest thing. I mean, in sports, every day there's a winning and losing component. Like, you could have a bad day, you're not playing well, you can go down. I feel it's a roller coaster all the time. So I feel like athletes are really prepared in the corporate world or the business world to handle the ups and downs of anything, a life. I mean, but when you put it into work, I mean, I'm sure you guys deal with the same stuff where, like, you don't get a deal you really wanted to get, or you don't, you present something and it just bombs. Like, that happens.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I love the way you reframe that of, it's not a win or lose, it's a win or learn, because I think I see that happen a lot where it can be easy to go, I'm just gonna, yep, that awful thing happened, I want to forget about it, I never want to think about it again. And in turn, that truly is the big loss, because now you have nothing from that you're taking with you to then figure out, how do I adjust, and how do I do this differently next time, and how do I serve my next client better because I figured out, well, perhaps we didn't do well here, and I can take that with me. And to me, that is sort of the core of that sort of muscle of resilience, of figuring out, how do I bounce back from this, because I become strategic about looking at something as simply not just a win or not just a loss, but all of it as learning, right? Because same thing with the wins. Yeah. Like, if you never evaluate actually what you did well, or where you went, you know what, like, this win actually could have looked even a little bit different for us if we had done this differently, right?
Yes. We're actually I'd say harder on our team when we win sort of the next day than when we lose, because, like, so the next day's practice is important, because whether you're on a high from winning or whether you're on a low from losing, you got to go out and do it again. So we're actually harder on the team when we win, because we need to bring them down to get off the high. Like, that was yesterday. Now we have today to focus on. And what can we learn from that game, even though we did a lot of things well? And then we are, when they lose, we try to, hey, like, positive. Like, we got this. Like, just because we lost in the score column doesn't mean we're failures. So it's an interesting, I learned that early on from a mentor of, like, be nicer to them basically after a loss than you would be. And I'm like, you got to flip your thinking in that sense, because you're frustrated at the things you did wrong, but at the same time, you got to move forward.
Yeah. Well, when you've lost or when you're losing, it's not like you don't know that, right?
Exactly.
These are very competitive athletes. They haven't reached this point of D1, student athlete, because they don't care if they lose.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I imagine that is really tough. And I see that sometimes too, where sometimes when an employee's already down, like, kicking them further isn't going to help to motivate them to figure out, like, what do I do differently, or how do I adjust? And same thing with, like, when you're winning, you're doing really well. If you don't have that bit of humility that this is temporary and it's not given or guaranteed, then you really may lose some perspective along the way.
For sure.
Yeah. And so I'm curious about, player develops a lot of skills while they're on a team. Which ones have you seen help prepare them for career success in particular?
That's a good question. I could probably argue almost all of them. I mean, I guess when you get down to picking up a ground ball, maybe that's not going to help in your world. But, I think what we just talked about, that sort of the resiliency, the wins and the losses, how to handle them. So really the summary of that is response. So response to everything. Your response to everything really makes a big difference, and you choose that response. And I think learning that lesson is really hard, because, like, even my kids, I have an 8 and a 5-year-old, they'll say, the other one made me cry. No.
Yeah.
You chose to cry because you chose to be upset. So it's say the same thing with our team. It's like things go well, things go poorly. You're choosing your response. And so in the real world, that's what we call it. That's what we call your world, the real world. When you get out of college and when you start in the corporate world, you're gonna have a boss and you're gonna have responsibilities, and you get to choose how you're gonna attack that day or attack that action you have to do. And so I think really being intentional with your choices in that, and we obviously encourage them to stay positive no matter what, whether it's something they love to do, hate to do, it's miserable, they just got yelled at, or they just got praised. Like it's a choice on how you're going to kind of respond and go forward.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. But yeah, I mean, time management, learning to be coached and learning to, respond well to coaching, which is the same as having a boss, and being a teammate and being a leader and being a follower. We talk about being a good follower all the time because not everyone's going to be a leader. Sometimes you just got to follow the leader and do what's right by the team. So all those skills correlate to the real world. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I see so much of what you've shared of what I love about some of our employees who are former student athletes.
Yeah.
And certainly the quality of whether on the field or off the field, at the end of the day, you only have control over you.
Right.
And what a powerful lesson to learn in college, and definitely it will take them far in life of whatever boardroom that they're sitting in next.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Meredith, for all your time today. I really appreciate it. It was great hearing more about women's lacrosse, and
Thank
we're
you.
certainly lucky to have you.
Yeah, come out and support our games at Valley Fields starting in February. So.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That sounds
thanks.
great.